My name is Daniel Carter, and the day my parents erased me from their will was the day they unknowingly made me the most powerful person in the room. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I didn't even react the way they expected me to, because deep down, something felt off, like the story wasn't over yet, like something bigger was waiting just around the corner, and I was right. But before I get to that moment, you need to understand what it felt like to grow up as the son who was never enough. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about years of silence, comparison, and being treated like I didn't belong in my own family. I grew up in a house where everything looked perfect from the outside. Nice neighborhood, clean lawn, family, dinners, every Sunday. From a distance, we looked like the kind of family people envied. But inside that house, there were two different worlds. One for my older brother Ryan, and one for me. Ryan was everything my parents loved. Confident, loud, charming. The kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly be the center of attention. He didn't just get approval, he lived in it. Every mistake he made was excused. Every bad decision was somehow turned into a learning experience. And me, I was the opposite. Quiet, focused, the kind of person who thought before speaking, the kind of person who didn't need attention, but still hoped for a little recognition. But in my house, being quiet didn't mean being respected, it meant being ignored. I can't even count how many times I heard the same sentence growing up. Why can't you be more like your brother? At first it hurt. Then it frustrated me. And eventually, it just became normal. Like background noise, you stop noticing. Ryan would come home with average grades, and my parents would celebrate him like he'd achieved something incredible. I would come home with top scores, and all I'd get was a simple nod. Good, that's what we expect. No excitement, no pride, just expectation. And the worst part was, I kept trying anyway, because no matter how distant they felt, they were still my parents, and some part of me still believed that if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough, things would change. But they never did. The gap between me and Ryan only grew wider as we got older. When Ryan turned 20, my parents funded his first business idea. I'd failed within a year. They called it bad luck. Then they funded his second idea. That one failed too. They called it experience. By the time he was on his third attempt, they were still supporting him like he was some kind of future success story. And me, I paid my own way through college, worked part-time jobs, built my life, step by step, without asking them for anything. Not because I didn't need help, but because I already knew the answer. Still, there was one person who never treated me like I was invisible. My grandmother, Evelyn Carter. She was different. She didn't compare, she didn't judge, she listened. And that alone made her the most important person in my life. I used to spend hours at her house growing up, sitting in her living room while sunlight came through those old curtains, talking about things that no one else ever asked me about. What do you think, Daniel? That question meant everything to me, because in a house where my voice didn't matter, she made it feel important. One day, when I was about 16, she looked at me in a way that felt deeper than usual. People underestimate quiet minds, she said. I remember asking her what she meant, and she smiled, like she already knew something I didn't. The loud ones get attention, she said softly, but the quiet ones, they understand everything. Then she added something that stayed with me for years. One day, that will matter more than you think. At the time, I didn't fully understand her words, but I never forgot them, because the way she said it, it didn't feel like advice, it felt like a promise. Years passed, and nothing really changed in my family. Ryan continued being the center of everything, and I continued being the one in the background. Until the day everything cracked. I was 22 when it finally got to me. We were sitting at the dinner table like always. Ryan was talking about another business idea, something vague, risky, and full of holes. And my parents were listening like it was genius, encouraging him, praising him, talking about investing again. I sat there quietly for a while, but something inside me started to boil. Not anger exactly, more like exhaustion. 6 years of working hard, 6 years of doing everything right, and still being treated like I didn't exist. So for the first time, I spoke up. Why is it always him? The table went silent. My mother sighed like I had just ruined something. Daniel, don't start. I'm not starting anything, I said calmly. I just want to understand. My father looked at me, his expression already irritated. Ryan takes risks, he said. He needs support, and I don't. You're fine, he replied. That word hit harder than anything else. Fine, not important, not special, just fine. It was in that moment I realized something I should have understood years ago. I was never going to be enough for them. Not because I lacked something, but because they had already decided who I was, and no matter what I did, that wouldn't change. That night, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a door closing. And once it closed, it never opened again. A year later, my grandmother passed away, and losing her felt like losing the only place I ever truly belonged. The house felt emptier, the world felt colder, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. The entire family gathered. For the will reading, I didn't care about money. I didn't care about inheritance, but I cared about what she thought of me because she was the only one who ever saw me clearly. So as I sat in that lawyer's office, I held on to one small hope, that somehow, in some way, she had left something that proved I mattered. The lawyer began reading. And just like always, Ryan came first. He inherited the house, the antiques, most of her visible assets. My parents smiled. Ryan looked satisfied. And for a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like the same pattern was repeating itself one last time. Then the lawyer paused. And to my grandson Daniel, the room shifted just slightly, but I felt it. I sat up a little straighter, waiting, but what came next wasn't what I expected, because what she left me in that will was almost nothing, a small amount, insignificant. Compared to Ryan's share, the room relaxed again. My parents exchanged looks that said everything without words. Ryan leaned back, comfortable. And just like that, I was invisible again. I didn't react. I didn't argue. I didn't even look disappointed, because something inside me told me this wasn't the full story. And 2 days later, I found out I was right. I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello, is this Daniel Carter? Yes, this is Mr. Lawson, your grandmother's private attorney. I frowned slightly. I already attended the will reading. I know, he said calmly. This is separate. That one word changed everything. She left instructions for me to contact you privately, he continued. My heart started beating faster. About what? A brief pause, then he said something that made everything stop. She left you something that wasn't included in the public will. I sat down slowly. What does that mean? It means, he said, your grandmother had a different plan for you. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I felt like something was finally about to change. Not slowly, not eventually, but completely, and I had no idea just how big that change was going to be. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call again and again in my head. Your grandmother had a different plan for you. Those words wouldn't leave me, because for the first time in my life, something felt like it was meant for me. Not Ryan. My parents. Me. The next morning, I got ready earlier than I needed to. I don't even remember what I wore. All I remember is the feeling in my chest. Tight, heavy, uncertain. Hope can do that to you. It builds you up and scares you at the same time, because part of you believes, and another part is already preparing for disappointment. The office was quiet when I arrived, different from the place where the will had been read. That room had felt formal, almost staged. This one felt private. Intentional. Mr. Lawson greeted me at the door. Calm, professional, measured. The kind of man who didn't waste words. Daniel, he said, shaking my hand. Come in. I sat across from him, trying to stay composed, but my mind was racing. What is this about? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Then he placed it on the table between us. Double quotes. This, he said quietly, is what your grandmother wanted you to have. I looked at the folder, but didn't touch it. Not yet. Why wasn't this included in the will? I asked. He leaned back slightly. Because she didn't want anyone else to know about it. That made my stomach tighten. Not even my parents, especially not your parents. That answer told me everything. Slowly, I opened the folder. At first, it didn't make sense. There were documents, contracts, bank statements, ownership records. Numbers. Lots of numbers. Bigger than anything I had ever seen in my life. I flipped through the pages, trying to understand, but it felt like reading a language I didn't fully know. I don't understand, I said finally. Mr. Lawson nodded, like he expected that. She didn't leave you money in the traditional sense, he explained. She left you control. I looked up at him. What does that mean? He folded his hands on the desk. It means that while everyone else was focused on visible assets, she moved the real value somewhere else. My heart started beating faster. Where? He pointed at the documents in front of me. Into holdings, investments, and private shares, all structured under your name. I stared at him. You're saying, this is mine? Yes, all of it. Yes. I shook my head slightly. That doesn't make sense. Why would she? Because she trusted you. He cut me off gently. She believed you would handle it differently than the others. That hit deeper than anything else he had said. Not smarter. Not better. Just differently. And for some reason, that mattered more. I looked back down at the papers, trying to process it, trying to believe it. How much is this? I asked quietly. There was a pause. Then he said it. Approximately $2.5 million. In liquid and controlled assets. My breath caught. $2.5 million. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel possible. I had spent my entire life being treated like I had nothing. And now, suddenly, I had everything. Or at least, more than enough to change everything. I leaned back in my chair, still trying to process it. This doesn't make sense, I said again, softer this time. She gave Ryan the house. The visible things, and she gave you the foundation, he replied, the things that grow. I sat there in silence because for the first time, I understood what she meant. All those years ago, people underestimate quiet minds. She hadn't just been talking, she had been preparing me, and setting something in motion that no one else even knew existed. Why didn't she tell me? I asked. Mr. Lawson gave a small, knowing smile. Because she wanted you to find out exactly like this. Why? Because she knew how your family would react. That answer made something shift inside me. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about money. This was about what came next. What do I need to do? I asked. He slid another document toward me. First, you sign these. It transfers full access and authority to you. I looked at the pen. Then at the paper, then back at him. And after that, he met my eyes. After that, you decide what kind of man you want to be. I signed. Not slowly, not hesitantly, just clearly. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for permission. When I walked out of that office, everything felt different. The world hadn't changed, but I had, and I knew it was only a matter of time before my family found out. And when they did, things were going to get complicated. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, my mother called. Her tone was different, too polite, too careful. Daniel, can you come over for dinner tonight? That alone was strange. They never invited me. Not like this. What's the occasion? I asked. Oh, nothing special, she said quickly. We just want to spend time together? I almost laughed, but I didn't. All right, I said. I'll be there. The moment I hung up, I already knew. They knew, or at least, they suspected something. That evening, I walked into the same house I had grown up in, but it didn't feel the same anymore. Because this time, I wasn't the one walking in. Empty-handed. Dinner was already set. Ryan was there. Smiling. To friendly. My father nodded at me. My mother hugged me longer than usual. And that's when I knew for sure. Something had changed. Not in them. And how they saw me. We sat down. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Too normal. Small talk, fake smiles, careful words. Then Ryan leaned forward slightly. So, I heard something interesting. There it was. I looked at him calmly. He smirked. Yeah, something about grandma leaving you. A little surprise. My mother quickly added, we just want to understand what's going on. Understand. That word again, but this time, it didn't feel innocent. That it felt like they were trying to measure something, calculate something. I put my fork down slowly. There's nothing to understand, I said. It was her decision. My father's expression tightened slightly. You should have told us. Why? The question came out sharper than I expected. The room went quiet. Because we're family, my mother said softly. I held her gaze. Were we? That landed hard. Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. Come on, Daniel. No need to make this a big deal. A big deal. I repeated. You mean like the last 20 years? The silence that followed was heavy. Real this time. No pretending. No acting. Just truth. And they didn't like it. Not one bit. Because for the first time, I wasn't playing my role anymore. And they didn't know how to handle that. My father finally spoke, his voice controlled, but colder now. You think this changes anything? I looked at him. No, I said calmly. It just shows me what was already there. And that's when I saw it. Not anger, not disappointment, something else. Fear. Because deep down, they knew they had spent years building a version of me that stayed small. And now, that version was gone. And they had no idea what replaced it. That night ended quietly. But nothing about it was peaceful. Because underneath the silence, something had started. Something that couldn't be undone. And I could feel it. This wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't go home right away after that dinner. Instead, I just drove. No destination. No plan. Just empty roads and a mind that refused to slow down. Because something had shifted that night. And it wasn't just about money anymore, it was about control. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to my family. I was watching them, studying them, and what I saw was unsettling. They weren't curious. They were calculating. Every word, every look, every pause at that dinner table. It wasn't natural, it was measured. Like they were trying to figure out how much I knew, or worse, how much I had. I pulled over at a quiet spot and sat there in silence. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I thought about my grandmother. Not just the will, not just the money, but her. The way she used to watch people without saying much. The way she always seemed to understand things before anyone else did. And suddenly, I realized something. She didn't just give me assets. She gave me a position. A position my family didn't even know existed. Yet. And that meant one thing. I needed to be careful. Very careful. The next morning, I called Mr. Lawson. I need to understand everything. I told him not just the basics. Everything. There was a pause on the other end. Then he said, I was hoping you'd say that. We met again that afternoon. That's time. It wasn't just a folder on the table. It was multiple files, charts, structures, breakdowns, and the deeper I went, the clearer it became. This wasn't random. This wasn't just an inheritance. This was strategy. Your grandmother didn't trust direct transfers, Mr. Lawson explained. She believed they made people lazy, careless. I nodded slowly. That sounds like her. So instead, she built layers, structures that required involvement. Involvement? I asked. Yes, active decision-making, oversight, growth. I leaned forward slightly. Meaning, if I do nothing, it stagnates, he said, and if I handle it right. His eyes met mine. It multiplies. That word stayed with me. Thought multiplies, because suddenly, this wasn't just about preserving what she left me. It was about building something bigger, something they could never take. What about my family? I asked. He didn't hesitate. They have no legal access to any of this. That was reassuring, but it didn't relax me, because legal access and emotional pressure are two very different things they're going to push. I said, yes. He replied calmly. They will. And if they find out the full amount, they won't react well. I let out a slow breath. I figured. There was a moment of silence. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind. Did she expect this? Mr. Lawson gave a small nod. She anticipated resistance. From them, yes. And for me, that made him pause. Then he smiled slightly. No, that answer did something to me, because it meant she had been sure about one thing. Me, that kind of trust. It's heavy, but it also gives you clarity. I spent the next few days learning everything I could. Rushing, making big moves, just understanding, watching, planning. And then, exactly 1 week after that dinner, the first real move came. It was Ryan. Of course it was. He showed up at my apartment unannounced. No call, no warning, just a knock on the door like everything between us was normal. I opened it, and there he was, smiling, casual, like we were close. Hey, little brother, he said. I stepped aside without a word. He walked in, looking around like he was inspecting something. Nice place, he added. I closed the door slowly. What do you want, Ryan? Straight to it. No games. His smile didn't disappear, but it changed, slightly thinner. Can't I just visit my brother? No. That landed exactly how I wanted it to. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. Still the same, huh? No, I said calmly. Not. That made him stop. Just for a second. Then, he turned to face me fully. All right, he said. Let's not waste time. There, it was, the real reason. I've been thinking, he continued, about what Grandma left you. I didn't respond. I just watched him, and I think we should work together. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Work together. Yeah, he said, stepping closer. You know, combine things. Make smarter moves. Grow it faster. I tilted my head slightly. You mean my assets? He didn't even deny it. Look, Daniel, let's be honest. You've never handled money like this before, and you have. That hit a nerve. I saw it in his eyes. But he recovered quickly. I have experience, he said. With what? He didn't answer that directly. Instead, he changed direction. Dad's been under some pressure lately. There it was, the angle, the emotional hook, and, I asked, and we could use some support. We. Not him. Not Dad. We. I walked past him and sat down. Support, I repeated. Yes. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said quietly, no. Silence. Real silence. This time his expression didn't change immediately, but I could see it building underneath. You don't mean that, he said. I do. Daniel. No. I stood up again. Firm. Clear. No. The word echoed in the room because, for the first time, it wasn't a reaction, it was a decision. His jaw tightened. You're really going to turn your back on your family? I held his gaze. My family turned their back on me a long time ago. That hit harder than anything else, because it was true, and he knew it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he laughed. But this time, there was no humor in it. Wow, he said. Grandma really changed. You. I shook my head slightly. No, I stepped closer. She just showed me the truth. He stared at me for a few seconds longer, then he nodded. Slowly. All right, he said. Have it your way. And just like that, the mask came off completely. No more pretending. No more brotherly tone. Just cold distance. He walked to the door, then paused. You think this is over, he said, without turning around. I didn't answer, because I already knew the answer. No, it wasn't over. Not even close. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed felt different. Heavier. Sharper. Because now, everything was out in the open. No more guessing. No more pretending. Just lines. Drawn clearly, and I had made my choice. But choices have consequences. And deep down, I knew something was coming. Something bigger than awkward dinners and fake conversations. Because people like Ryan don't walk away quietly. And families like mine don't accept losing control. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, then I took a slow breath. And for the first time, I started preparing, not just to protect what I had, but to face whatever came next. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. And that silence, it wasn't peaceful, it was waiting. I kept going through my routine like normal. But my instincts were sharp now. Every unknown number, every email, every small detail felt like it mattered. Because after Ryan left my apartment that day, I knew one thing for sure. He wasn't done. And I was right. It started with something small. A notification from my bank. Unusual activity detected. My stomach tightened the moment I saw it. I opened the app. Immediately, there it was. Multiple login attempts. Not successful, but close enough to trigger alerts. Different locations, different devices, but all within a short window. Someone was trying to get in, and I didn't need proof to know who would even think about doing that. I called Mr. Lawson. Right away. I think they've started, I said. His tone didn't change. Tell me what happened. I explained everything. Every detail. He listened carefully, then said, good. I frowned slightly. Good. Yes. It means you're taking this seriously. And it means we act now, not later. That calmed me more than I expected. What do I need to do? Come to the office. Bring everything you have access to. I didn't waste time. Within an hour, I was sitting across from him again. This time, the atmosphere was different. Less explanation. More action. We're going to lock everything down, he said. And that's exactly what we did. Accounts secured. Access points. Limited verification layers added. Every possible entry. Sealed. If they try again, they won't get close. He assured me. But something about it still bothered me. They wouldn't risk something like this unless they were desperate. I said. Mr. Lawson nodded slowly. Or unless they believe they're entitled. That word again. Entitled. It described my family better than anything else ever had. What else should I expect? I asked. He leaned back slightly. Pressure, manipulation, possibly even attempts to discredit you. I let out a slow breath. Of course. And Daniel. I looked up. Don't underestimate them. People who feel like they're losing control don't think clearly. That stayed with me. Because it meant one thing. This wasn't just going to be comfortable. It was going to get ugly. And it didn't take long. 2 days later, I got a call from my workplace. HR. That alone was strange. Daniel, we need to talk about something that's come to our attention. The tone was formal. Careful. I already knew. This wasn't random. What is it? I asked. There's been a report filed. Regarding your conduct. My grip tightened on the phone. Conduct. Yes, financial misconduct. Specifically, for a moment, I just sat there, because that was it. That was their move. Not direct, not obvious, but damaging. Who filed it? I asked. We can't disclose that right now. Of course, they couldn't, but I didn't need them to. I understand, I said calmly, and I'm more than willing to cooperate. There was a pause. All right, we'll schedule a formal review. When the call ended, I didn't feel panic. I felt clarity, because now I knew exactly what kind of game they were playing, and I wasn't going to react emotionally. I was going to respond strategically. I went straight to Mr. Lawson. They've escalated. I told him. He didn't look surprised. What happened? I explained the call. The accusation. Everything. He nodded once. Expected. I narrowed my eyes slightly. So what do we do? He leaned forward. We don't defend. Not yet. That caught me off guard. What? We observe? Let them commit fully. You want me to just sit and wait while they know? He interrupted calmly. I want you to let them expose themselves. I stared at him. And slowly, I understood. If this was false. And it was. Then the more they pushed it, the more evidence they'd leave behind. And when it came back, it wouldn't just clear me. It would destroy them. They're not thinking long term. He continued. They're reacting. That's their weakness. And our advantage, I said quietly. He nodded. Exactly. The review happened 3 days later. I walked into that room. Calm. Prepared. Focused. They asked questions. Detailed ones, about transactions. Accounts. Access. Answered everything clearly. No hesitation. No confusion, because I knew the truth, and truth doesn't need to be forced. At the end of it, one of the senior officers leaned forward. Daniel, do you have any idea who might have made this report? I looked at him for a moment. Then I said, yes. The room went still, but I'd prefer to let you come to your own conclusion. That answer did more than any accusation ever could, because it told them one thing. I wasn't guessing. I knew, and I wasn't afraid. Investigation didn't take long after that, because there was nothing to find. No misconduct. Nope. Irregularities. Nothing. But what they did find was interesting. The report had been traced back. Not directly, but close enough to someone connected to my family, and that was all it took. The case was closed, but the damage didn't stop there, because now there was a record, a false accusation, filed with intent, and that changes things. Legally. Professionally. Personally. When I got the final call clearing my name, I didn't feel relief. I felt something else, something colder, resolve, because now it wasn't just about defending myself. It was about setting boundaries, clear ones, permanent ones. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then, I answered. His voice was different. Not calm. Not controlled. Sharp. What have you done? I didn't react. I haven't done anything. Don't play games with me. Daniel, we're being questioned now. There it was. Consequences. You should have thought about that before making false accusations. Silence. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then, this isn't over. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, then said quietly, no, you're right. This isn't over. And I meant it, because now, the lines weren't just drawn, they were reinforced, and whatever came next wasn't going to be subtle, it wasn't going to be quiet, it was going to be final. The call with my father ended, but the tension didn't. If anything, it settled deeper. He wasn't angry because I had done something wrong. He was angry because for the first time, his actions had consequences. Real ones. And people like him, like Ryan, they weren't used to that. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had to, but because my mind was already moving. Clear, focused. Certain. Because this wasn't about reacting anymore. This was about ending it. Properly. I met Mr. Lawson one last time that week. I'm ready, I told him. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. I figured you would be. We sat down, and for the first time since this all began, there were no explanations. No breakdowns. Just decisions. I don't want this dragging on, I said. I don't want back and forth games. No more pressure, no more manipulation. And what do you want instead? He asked. I leaned back slightly. Closure? He folded his hands. There are a few ways to approach that. I'm listening. We can pursue legal action for the false report. That's one option. We can formally cut financial and legal ties. That's another. And, he paused. We can expose everything. I looked at him. Everything. Yes. The attempts to access your accounts, the false report, the pressure tactics. I let that sit for a moment. Because that option was final. There would be no coming back from that. No repairing anything. No pretending. Later. Just truth. And consequences. I thought about my entire life. Every dinner where I was ignored. Every moment I was overlooked. Every time I was treated like it didn't matter. And then I thought about my grandmother, the only person who had seen me clearly, who had trusted me without needing proof, and suddenly, the decision became simple. We expose it, I said. Mr. Lawson nodded once. All right, the process started. Immediately, documentation, gathered timelines, built. Evidence, organized, everything, clean. Precise. Undeniable. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about reality. And reality doesn't need exaggeration. It just needs to be shown. 3 days later, everything was ready. And that's when I made the final call. Not to Ryan. Not to my father. To all of them. A family meeting, same house. Same table. But this time, it wasn't their stage, it was mine. When I walked in, they were already there. My mother looked anxious. My father, tense. Ryan, guarded. No smiles this time. No pretending. Good. I took my seat calmly. Then I placed a folder on the table. No one touched it. Not yet. You wanted to understand what's going on, I said quietly. Now you will. My father leaned forward slightly. What is this? The truth. That word alone changed the air in the room. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Daniel, what are you doing? I didn't look at him. Ending this, I opened the folder and turned it toward them. Everything you've done over the past 2 weeks is in there? Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Double quotes. No games. I continued. No assumptions. Just facts. My mother hesitated, then slowly reached for the papers. As she read, her expression changed. Confusion. Then realization. Then something closer to fear. My father took the documents from her. His jaw tightened with every page. Ryan didn't move at first, but when he finally looked, I saw it. The exact moment he understood. This wasn't something he could talk his way out of. You tried to access my accounts, I said calmly. You filed a false report against me. You attempted to pressure me into handing over what isn't yours. Each sentence landed heavier than the last. And now, there are records of all of it. My father slammed the papers down. This is ridiculous.
No,
I said quietly. It's accurate. Ryan leaned forward. You're blowing this out of proportion. I finally looked at him. No, I'm showing it exactly as it is. That shut him up. Because deep down, he knew there was no angle left, no manipulation that would work here. This can go 2 ways. I continued. We can take this further. Legally, publicly, completely. I paused, or I let the silence stretch. You walk away. My mother looked up at me. Her voice barely steady. What do you mean? I mean you stop everything. No more calls. No more interference. No more attempts to control something that was never yours. My father scoffed. And if we don't, I held his gaze, then I finish it. No emotion. No anger. Just certainty. Because I wasn't threatening them. I was informing them. And they could feel the difference. The room fell silent. Again, but this time, it wasn't tension. It was realization that had lost. Not just the money, not just control. Me, Ryan, leaned back slowly. Exhaling. For the first time since I'd known him, he didn't have anything to say. My father looked away. My mother closed the folder quietly. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. The dynamic was gone. The version of me they had controlled didn't exist anymore. I stood up. This is the last conversation we have like this. I said. No one stopped me. No one argued because there was nothing left to argue. I walked to the door, then paused for just a second, not to look back, but to let it settle. Then I left. And this time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt something else. Freedom, real. Freedom, not the kind that comes from money, but the kind that comes from clarity. From knowing exactly where you stand, and refusing to stand anywhere else. A few weeks passed after that. No calls, no messages, no attempts, just silence. But this time, it was peaceful. I focused on building. On growing what my grandmother had trusted me with. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but carefully, intentionally. Because now, I understood what she had really given me. Not wealth, not just opportunity. Perspective. The ability to see people for who they are, and choose accordingly. And in the end, that was worth more than anything else. Because money can change your life. But clarity, that changes who you become. And I knew one thing for certain now. I wasn't the overlooked son anymore. I wasn't the quiet one in the corner. I wasn't the afterthought. I was the man my grandmother believed I could be. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.